accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, be advised that notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and mailing to the officially designated newspapers a list of the meeting dates annually, indicating that this meeting would take place on Monday, March 1st at 7 p.m. via Zoom webinar. Oh, okay, let me get Joy just got here. Craig Klintner,
Yes.
Jody Sharma,
Here.
Here. Joy Siegel,
Here.
Steve Tober,
Here.
Wolfgang Tutores,
Here.
Amy Lawrence,
Sorry. Here.
Vice Chairwoman Jessica Blatt,
Here.
Chairman Joseph Steinberg.
Here.
Oh, before we start, let me just bring Sean Drew over so I can call his name as well. Okay, Sean Drew, hard. Muted.
Muted. Sandra, you're muted. You're still muted. We can't hear you.
There we go.
All right. Yeah.
You're here?
I was
Okay.
just coming back from my daughter's, activity commitments. So apologies for the delay. I'll always have to rush back. So, but I'm here.
Okay.
Nice to see you all. We have the approval of minutes.
Okay, so turning to the agenda. The first item is the approval of minutes. Now, I never got them, but that's a different story. And I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to vote on them because I didn't get them, and there's something wrong with my computer in terms of getting stuff from Eileen. An old story, but I've got.
Somebody just puts all my stuff in your junk folder. I don't know why.
I don't know why, but sometimes it does. Anyway, the first item is the approval of the minutes of the February 1 meeting. Anyone who's read those minutes, please, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of February 1st.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. All right, the memorializations are next. And I definitely want to, again, call out to Joy Siegel for a spectacular job that she does working with our attorney, Rob Simon, on getting those memorializations in perfect form. What's the first one we're going to be dealing with tonight?
First one is calendar 376-6-20, Justin and Jenna Teichauer, which was tabled from our February meeting till tonight. Eligible to vote on this matter are Craig Platner, Wolfgang Tutores, Jessica Blatt, and Joseph Steinberg.
Is there a motion to approve that memorialization?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Craig Platner,
Yes.
Wolfgang Tutores,
Yes.
Jessica Blatt,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg.
Yes. Okay. Any other memorializations tonight?
Yeah, the next one is Cal 3773-20, 9 North Road, Nakao, Chem. All full members are eligible to vote.
Is there a motion to approve the Ken memorialization.
I move approval of memorialization for calendar 3773-20.
Second,
Is
Is
there a
that you,
second?
Jody?
yep,
Craig Plaitner,
Yes.
Jody Sharma,
yes,
Joy Siegel,
Yes.
Steve Toger,
Sorry, yes.
Wolfgang Tutoris,
Yes.
Jessica Glad,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg.
Yes,
And the last one is calendar 3775-20, 132 Hartshorn, JNPOG. All full members are eligible.
is there a motion to approve 132 Hartshorn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Craig Plaitner,
Yes.
Jody Sharma,
yes,
Joy Siegel,
Yes.
Steve Toger,
Yes,
Wolfgang Tutoris,
Yes.
Jessica Glad,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg.
Yes. All right, just for the record, so we will all make note of it. 401 Wyoming Avenue, Solomon, has been adjourned to March 15th. So the first matter we're going to be hearing tonight is Bing Shen at 332 Lupine Way.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of comments. First of all, with regard to 401 Wyoming Avenue, that's being carried to March 15th with no further notice to be provided by the applicant.
Yes, correct.
And Eileen, just to confirm that should a member of the public be interested in that application, that they would be able to access the meeting with the same Zoom information as for the original notice?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
and Joe, I just want to reiterate about calendar 3776-20, 340 Millburn Avenue. I'm going to recuse from that case.
Can we talk?
Yeah, let's talk about that one now.
Eileen, can you, I don't know if Miss Fairweather is in the,
He is. I do see Judith. I'm assuming that is her.
can you let her in, please?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. So yes, so I'm asking.
Hold on. So we're talking right now for a moment regarding calendar 3776-20. This is with regard to property located 340 Millburn Avenue, and the applicant is New Singular Wireless. Ms. Fairweather, good evening.
Hello, Mr. Simon. Yes. So we had submitted owner's consent from the company that was responsible for leasing the roof top of the property owner. And it appears that they did not communicate with the property owner. So I'm asking to please carry this because obviously American Tower and the property owner needs to come to agreement on this. And I will renotice because I don't know if this will take a month or 2 months since there's obviously an issue there. So I ask that we be carried a toll, the shot clock for wireless applications, and I will renotice. Sorry.
Judy, with regard to the tolling, that also applies to any time period under the municipal land use law?
Yes, absolutely.
So do we want to carry this to a date certain or you're?
Well, if you don't mind carrying me for 1 month, honestly, I don't know. I thought this was all wrapped up and done, so it's kind of,
Eileen, if Ms. Fairweather is going to renotice anyway, it may be wise just to, just put a placeholder in and then Ms. Davitt can reconnect with Ms. Fairweather maybe in a few weeks or just to get an update. That might be the best way to proceed.
that sounds great. Yeah, just leave a placeholder so I can be heard. And I will let you know, Eileen, as soon as this all obviously occurred this afternoon, tomorrow I will definitely have a much better feel if this will take a month or longer. And I'll reach out to you.
Can we carry you till April 5th
Sure, yes.
And then if you'll have a better idea at that time whether we should put you off till the second meeting of April.
Yes, that sounds good. Thanks.
All right, we have,
And just so it's clear, the applicant will be renoticing for that application regardless.
right,
Absolutely.
thank you,
Okay, thank you all very much, and I'm sorry.
not at all. It looks like this is going to be a pretty short meeting.
That's the kiss of death. Yeah.
We're down to two matters.
Thank you.
The first one is 9 Burnside Drive, which is carried from February 1. And as my recollection was that with respect to that matter, there was some feeling among board members that there should be some hiding by plantings or otherwise of the new addition to the rear of that property. But where are we on that one, Eileen?
Everyone received the revised plan, and then I think as soon as Don comes on, he'll speak to it. There was some communications amongst the applicant and property owners, and I think they changed their deck to a grade level patio with the landscaping. Mr. Fury will speak to that.
Right, Rob, if you're in a position now, just from looking at the revision that went out today, to advise us as to whether, in your opinion, this matter has to be renoticed or whether it can be heard.
Well, I think that what I'd like to do is first remind Mr. Fiore that he's still considered sworn. Do you agree with Mr. Fiore?
Yes, I do.
And then also, at the time this application, Mr. Chairman, was noticed, there were a number of variances that were requested. And what I think that maybe as a proffer before we get into it and address the issue as to whether the original notice was appropriate is just to have Mr. Fiore provide us an overview in terms of how the change to the, what is the change to the application and how the variances that were originally were requested, how are they affected, if at all?
That's fine. Mr. Fiore?
Okay. As a result of a late meeting that actually occurred yesterday between the property owner and 3 of the neighbors, effectively 3 neighbors to the left of our property and downhill from us, they had a good conversation. They had a chance to express a couple of their concerns and observations. And coming out of that, the result was, rather than the elevated deck that would be at the first floor level as we originally proposed, they came to an agreement to amend the project or the plans to effectively develop a patio on grade. Since the prior application, we had originally submitted a plan that showed landscaping with some additional screening. Obviously, since this meeting yesterday, we then made this amendment that was submitted today, showing it as a patio on grade. I'll share the drawing, go through the landscaping, and there is one difference relative to the plan and the variances that I will explain. I think it's just clearer with the plan shared.
So before we get into the landscaping, let's just, for purposes of assessing the adequacy of the notice, if you can just specifically address the variances that were requested versus the variances that are now required with the amendment to the application.
Sure. There were 3 variances that were requested. Accessory structure front yard setback of 80 feet. We were deficient by 21.72 feet. That remains unchanged. The accessory structure side yard setback, we were deficient by 5.5 feet. That remains unchanged.
By
And
6
the third one was lot coverage. And in this revised,
Wait, Mr. Fiore, hold on. Mr. Steinberg had a
Excuse me.
question, I believe.
I'm looking at your application, number 10. The accessory use side yard setback was deficient not by 5.5 5 feet, but by 6.5 feet. Is that correct?
Let me,
I believe that what is proposed is either 6.6 or 6.5 feet. And that's in the minimum.
yeah, so, yes, so we're deficient by the 5.5, the balance. So that remains unchanged. The third variance was for lot coverage. And in this revised scheme, we did fill in a gap on the plan, which added 35 square feet, which would increase that variance from 7.2% to 7.5%.
So what is being proposed in terms of lot coverage is 42.5%?
Yes.
Okay, so with regard to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, with regard to the variances that were originally noticed versus what is being proposed right now, my legal opinion to the board is that for 2 of the 3 variances, obviously they're identical in terms of the relief requested. In terms of the third variance, the difference in lot coverage is a 0.3%. And as we know, in reviewing the notice has what we call a catch-all provision, which says that they're asking for the variance relief as well as any other variances, exceptions, or other relief that may be required by the board or that may arise during the course of the application. I believe that the 0.3% difference in lot coverage is such that, at least from the notice perspective for purposes of the variance or variances, that the notice would be sufficient. I think that the other issue that the board needs to decide on, though, is that the original application, as noticed, was for a new deck. And now the deck is being substituted with a patio. And it's up to the board to determine whether or not that is substantially similar enough so that members of the public who have received the notice would not be prejudiced by learning that there is a change in terms of what the proposed use is. Also keeping in mind that it sounds like, from what Mr. Fiore stated, that this change was brought about by the meeting with the most affected neighbors to the application.
Board members, does anyone have an opinion that he or she would like to express as to whether we can go forward tonight with the existing notices that were sent out, or whether notices should be resent indicating a patio instead of a deck?
Well,
I think that they're, in my opinion, substantially similar enough to move forward. I think that, some people use the term deck and patio interchangeably, even though one is elevated and one is, on ground level. So I think that being noticed that there's a deck versus a patio is, not significant enough to hold back the application from proceeding tonight, but that's just my opinion.
Well, that's what we're looking for, is opinions.
I'm
Anybody else
fine.
like to chime in?
My apologies. I'm fine with moving forward, especially since the change was made in response to comments and feedback that the applicant had received the first time around.
Anyone else?
Well, I guess the big question comes down to this. If we were to move forward with the case as a deck and the neighbors objected and we said that we agreed with that objection, and we said, as an alternative, would you consider a patio? and that was agreeable to the applicant, you would have the same outcome. So in this case, the fact that the applicant is already proposing the potential outcome that may have been anyway, I think we arrive at the same place.
The only issue I have is that I think that if it were reversed, if we were looking at a case where a patio was proposed, and then they came to us and said, well, actually, we're going to make a deck that's going to be elevated with rails around it, I don't think we'd be able to say, sure, that's the same thing. So if that's the case, then how can we say it's the same thing in the reverse? That's where my mind is on it.
Can I make another suggestion?
Yes, go ahead, Rob.
Since the applicant, certainly had proper notice originally, and of course, we know that it was carried until tonight, what the board could do as sort of a middle ground is to proceed to hear the application, and then certainly at the time when the matter is opened up to the public for either cross-examination questions or comments or opinions by members of the public, or even the presentation of evidence, at that time, there may be an opportunity for the public or any member of the public who feels that he or she was prejudiced by the notice or what it is proposing by way of the application to raise that issue at the time.
I think that's a good idea. So let's do this. Unless there's really a strong objection from board members, let's proceed to hear the case, and we'll determine at the end when we vote as to whether we feel at that point we feel comfortable in moving forward with the original notices. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing screaming no's. So let's proceed. Mr. Fury, want to put your case on?
Okay, I'm just trying to get my drawing up here to share. There we go. Okay, there we go. Since the meeting that we had with the owners, just for a point of reference, the area map in the upper left-hand corner.
Wait, Mr. Fiore, hold on a second.
Yes.
What are we looking at right now?
My apologies. This is site plan or landscaping plan SP-1.2. This is the drawing that was submitted today.
Okay, so landscaping plan SP-1.2. What is the date on this plan, Mr. Fiore?
I have a revision date 3/1/21.
All right, what I would recommend, Mr. Chairman, is that we actually mark this as an exhibit since it was just submitted for the first time today.
Good idea.
Okay, so I don't believe, Mr. Fiore, my notes indicate that we haven't marked any exhibits yet. Is that your recollection as well?
Correct.
Okay, so why don't we mark this landscaping plan SP 1.2 with the date of 3/1/21 as A1.
Very good.
Please proceed.
Okay.
Thank
In
you.
the upper left-hand corner, we have an area map that shows the property in question. The three neighbors that we had the opportunity to meet with yesterday were these three to the left of our property, essentially downhill from our proposed project. Okay. In the upper right-hand corner, I will zoom in here. Okay. The first thing, there's a series of landscaping shown down the left-hand side in these various, I'm going to say crosshatch rendered plants. These are all down the left-hand side, and if following the cursor across the front of Burnside and back up along the driveway represents a series of existing shrubs that were planted within the past couple of years, two separate incidents. The smaller ones that I'm showing ringing the front of the yard, they're approximately 5 to 6 feet high. And actually the photographs that are directly below this plan in the sheet show the actual plants. I do apologize, but that was taken right after the snowfall around our last meeting. So literally half the plants are buried in snow. But the plants are approximately 5 to 6 feet tall, spaced 4 feet on center. The larger planting up on the upper left-hand side of the property are similar arborvitae, approximately 4 feet on center, approximately 12 feet high. They've just had a couple extra years of growth. In addition, behind the property, between some of the larger trees, there are another pair of existing arborvitae that had been planted previously, again, screening the property towards the neighbors, especially to the left.
Those, Mr. Fiore, are those trees on your client's property or on another property?
They are on the neighbor's property. I have a situation where because the properties are all irregular out here, we have each neighbor kind of planted plants. Some are on their property, some are on their others. These 4 here were planted by the neighbor, but are on the applicant's property. These 4 here were planted by the applicant, but are on a different neighbor's property. This all exists. They've all been working around the actual built conditions out there. But they've been planting what makes sense out there in terms of topography and layout, but it doesn't necessarily correlate with the meets and bounds of the lots.
Okay, proceed.
Okay. Since that hearing, the one gap I would say that we did see that essentially would complete this ring of screening was a row of arborvitae that we're proposing at this location, and it's pulled forward or down from the existing trees specifically because of that last question. That puts these plants on the applicant's property. So this was something that was being added to essentially fill in a void right here between this yard and neighboring yards, I would say behind and to the left of our property. So that was in terms of the prior application or prior hearing, that was what we were originally intending to propose with the application. Since then,
how tall will they be when they're planted?
I'm going for 5 to 6 feet.
Above the root ball, correct?
Yes. And that's basically consistent with the other, I want to say, smaller plantings that are out there today. That puts them all in the same age range.
Is that 5 to 6 feet above the root ball?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
So now, as of yesterday afternoon, we had an opportunity to meet with some of the neighbors by Zoom. And as I said, it's effectively the 3 neighbors to the left, 2 to the left directly, and 1 to the left and across the street. Conversations essentially circled around, I would say, the elevated deck and the visual concern when you are approaching, when you're pulling onto Burnside, that as the grade slopes up from Burnside, as you look into the applicant's backyard, the deck would then be an elevated deck, being that much more, they were terming it invasive of the neighborhood. They were also asking whether or not a patio would be considered as something that is more consistent with the neighborhood and the majority of the properties that were there along and around Burnside. And at that point, the applicant agreed to consider it. So this drawing shows the hatched area that we are proposing as the patio. The footprint of the patio as it's shown is the same as it was previously with one exception. And the one exception is the 35 square feet or 0.3% coverage that I mentioned previously is literally this rectangle here directly behind the back facet of this turret. And it's something that by using the patio on grade, effectively what happens is we're creating a staircase from the kitchen and back door that goes down to patio level, as a platform to turn to the patio, or you can continue down to the driveway level. So what they're doing is effectively losing deck space they had to now be stairs to access down to the patio on grade. At that point, we were looking to recoup some of that by filling in this area directly behind the house that effectively has little or no impact or no greater impact on any of the neighboring properties. What you're seeing in the drawing here, we would propose a dry laid garden wall to contain the two upper sides of the patio. And we're talking something on the order of a 16-inch to 18-inch wall, depending on where the grading is. On the left-hand side of the patio, it would effectively be at grade with base planting to screen from Burnside looking up the hill at the patio. So it would be a very nice soft buffer that occurs when you're looking at the property from the street. And the only thing we're doing down here is to get the new stair, a new landing. We are building a new set of stairs to get from the patio level down to the driveway level. The prior application had a much longer set of stairs that actually extended to approximately the 2/3 point along this curved brick wall. We're now pulling it back so it would be exposing only 4 feet of stair. That essentially is the largest change. That's the change that was discussed. And this is the result of those specific discussions. So I think we have something that that I would consider more appropriate or more pleasing within the neighborhood itself. Definitely more pleasing to the neighbors. I'll leave them to say acceptable or not. But at this point, it's something that is more consistent with what is in that neighborhood. I think the applicant is going over and above by providing some of this screening that softens the application. And it's something where the patio is, again, wholly behind the house. The issue gets to be that with the odd geometry of this property, the street is actually making this property a corner lot. I was hoping to get in there better. There we go. So the street where it has this sweeping around impact, it's making it a corner lot. If this were a conventional rectangular lot, the deck is directly behind the house and I'm running out of places to put it. Anything that extends beyond here, I basically have a very narrow, poorly used, poorly implemented application for a patio. And all I'm doing as I start pushing this further and further, if I went to this right side behind the house, I'm just approaching the other part of Burnside where it wraps around the property. So in my opinion, this is actually giving them a very good application for the applicant. And I think the suggestions from the neighbors has softened and improved the proposal.
Board members, let me just express my view of this for a moment. I think that I'm looking at the original application, and if I am reading it correctly, there were 16 properties that were noticed. I'm assuming that at least 2 of the 3 neighbors who met with the applicant yesterday were on that list. Not sure about the 3rd one.
All 3 were,
All 3 were noticed?
yes.
Right, so we have basically 16 people who were noticed, and 3 met with the applicant yesterday. And I'm wondering if I were one of the other 13 and saw something constructed completely different from what I was told would be constructed with the original notice, would I be upset? I think I might be. I'm not as clear in my mind at the moment that this matter should not be renoticed. But I'm again happy to hear once again other members of the board express their view of this matter.
Well, Joe, I was, if this went to a vote, I was going to abstain for those reasons.
Anyone else like to speak out on this?
The other parties that were noticed, I mean, they could attend this meeting. They know that this meeting is occurring, right?
Correct.
So they would be able to, if this was of import and they had a strong opinion on the matter, I would assume they would be present to express that opinion.
Well, let's find out from Eileen. Are there any hands? Can you ask Eileen for hands to be raised by members of the public who might be on the Zoom meeting if they're here on this particular case?
Don needs to unshare his screen.
Pardon me?
I can't see anything. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I have Sharon Classy and Frank Wall, both who have their hands raised. And Muffin Muller, I don't know. 3 people with their hands raised.
For all the neighbors.
Yes.
We should ask the neighbors. My own view is before we make a decision as to whether or not this matter can proceed without being renoticed, I would feel much more comfortable if we first asked the 3 people who've shown up tonight what their view is.
All right. Well, are we taking comments or what are we doing?
Well, that's my view. Let's ask the board, well, first of all, Mr. Simon, do you think that's appropriate?
Well, I think that we've heard some testimony, and it is certainly appropriate for the board, if they wish, to, in essence, take a pause and raise a procedural question, which is what some of you are doing. So it is, I believe, appropriate to certainly open it up to the public for the public to weigh in on a procedural issue that is raised by one or more members of the board.
Oh, thank you. So Eileen, let's do this. Let's tell the public, members of the public who are there tonight, are here tonight on this meeting, whether anyone would like to speak to the issue of whether there should be a renotice with all these, with the changes that have been described by the applicant's architect. Anyone like to speak to that issue?
I brought over Frank Bull, well, Sharon Clessy and two people who had their hands raised. I don't know if they have comments regarding the procedural issue, but I'll let them speak.
Well, let's bring in one at a time.
Okay.
Who's the first one coming in?
It comes up as Frank Ball.
Hi,
Hi.
it's Carol Ball. I'm on my husband's iPad. From number 2 Farley Road, the Mascaleras house.
Right.
And we met yesterday. We had a really good discussion.
Well, you were one of the three.
Yes, I was. And I mean, I've been surprised all along on the thing about notice that you know, we were the ones who were most interested in this. And I think it's because we're the most affected. And we were very pleased to provide input to Mr. Argawal and Architect Fiore.
Thank you. Eileen, can you bring in anyone else who's hand
Sharon
is raised?
Clessy.
Mr. Clessy?
No, Sharon Clessy.
Sharon Clessy.
Okay, so start my video. Hi, in terms of,
Wait, hold on a second. Just identify who you are and where you live.
hi, I'm Sharon Clessy and I live at 4 Burnside Drive, diagonally across the street from 9 Burnside.
Were you one of the people who were first notified of this matter? Did
You mean,
receive-
yes, the 200-foot notice letter? Yes, yes. I was part of the Zoom meeting yesterday and, well, to answer your first question, I think that the case should be heard this evening. I think actually a patio and deck, I agree, a lot of people use the word interchangeably. And actually, when you look at it specifically, a patio is less obtrusive to the neighborhood than a deck. I mean, they're proposing on grade. When it's time for questions, I have one question. But as it's proposed on grade, I think I think that it was a very nice compromise for the benefit of the neighborhood and being able for them to get what they want and the neighborhood to keep its aesthetic. So I think the case should be heard this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Simon, is there more to that, in your view, that we should be doing?
Ms. Davitt, is there anyone else from the public who wishes
Yes,
to?
I just had someone more here. And I will bring them over.
Muffin.
Muffin Muller?
Muffin Muller.
Yes, I guess so.
Not muted.
You guys hear? Do you guys hear me?
Yes.
I don't know why you can't see me, but
We see you.
you do. Oh, here I am. Okay. Well, hi everybody. I'm the third neighbor. I am right next door.
State your name and address, please.
My name is Muffin Muller,
An address.
5 Burnside Drive.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. We were really thrilled to meet yesterday with Sarab, and he was most considerate, and we all had a great conversation, and we're thrilled to see this patio that really is going to be really in keeping with the tenor of the neighborhood. And every house that's across the street from us has a patio. They're really pretty houses built by Muller, who, built these houses to look, as such, to go so perfectly with the patio. So we're thrilled, and we really, really would love the Agarwals to be able to have their patio for the summer. It's really important.
Thank
Want
you.
everybody to be happy. Thank you.
All right, we've now heard from 3 members of the public, all of whom it turns out were at that meeting yesterday. So we don't seem to have anyone in the audience, at least nobody who wants to be heard, who was not at the meeting. Board members, what are your feelings? I know Mr. Toger has indicated that if we have a vote on the issue of whether or not this matter should be renoticed, he is going to abstain. Anyone else like to make a comment as to whether or not you feel it's necessary for the applicant to renotice in this case? Craig, you look pregnant with thought.
Just a lot going on. I'm comfortable with proceeding with this case. Like I said originally, you know, all too often we make this type of correction through the normal pace of business. So, you know, to renotice, to then to basically hear Mr. Fiore present the case all over again, I understand that it is a procedural issue, but I think it's one that, like I said, in our normal course of business, we often change, you know, patios to decks to patios and make that sort of as a normal course. So I don't see that as an issue moving forward. I would have no problem voting on this case and, you know, with confidence of its outcome.
Thank you. Anyone else like to be heard? Apparently not. Is there a motion to proceed with this case tonight without requiring the applicant to renotice?
Are we doing a motion on this? What are we doing?
Yeah, well, Mr. Chairman, a couple things. First of all, I think it can be done by, in essence, a straw poll vote. That's number one. Number two, just to remind the board that this is not a site plan application. So and it's not an application for either a principal use variance or an accessory use variance. So in terms of what the actual use is between the patio and the deck, the board can certainly take those comments into consideration, but I think that just a straw poll would be sufficient because it is a procedural motion.
Fine. We won't have a formal vote with a motion and a second. All those who would like to see this matter proceed to tonight, raise your hands or say yes. I think I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. Is there anyone who is voting no? Steve Toger wants to have the matter renoticed. I think that we should proceed with this case tonight in light of the fact that the overwhelming number of people on the board feel that renoticing is not necessary. Mr. Fiore, is there anything more you wish to say?
No, I think we've presented, what is a much nicer, much more appealing application with this revision.
Is there a motion to either approve or deny?
I actually have a question.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. We have, first of all, we haven't opened up question for Mr. Fiore, who's the witness. We have to do that first.
So I have a question for Mr. Fiore. Can you describe the plantings along the outside of the deck or outside this new patio? I'm not sure what in details going in there.
That's the one thing that I do apologize about. We were planning on base plantings. We did not get far enough to run through a species today. Whether we did a boxwood or something of that nature, whether we did some small arborvitae, The intent is to get something on the order of about 3 feet high that will screen between the patio, basically a soft buffer patio down into the yard area. But it's a conversation to get the drawings out for this hearing tonight. We did not get that far.
Any other questions of this witness? Anyone in the audience have any questions for this witness?
Yes, I do.
Hand up.
I did. I do. I do.
Yes.
Hi. I would have just, well, my first question is, I just want to know what the elevation of the patio is.
It's shown as elevation 254,
Okay.
which is probably about the elevation at the base of the existing stairs,
Right.
plus or
Okay.
minus a couple inches.
Okay, perfect. My other question is, can we please like commit to the plantings that surround the patio, because that's in effect creating the privacy so that it's not seen from the street. I thought it wouldn't, our thought was that it wasn't going to be like a little boxwood below the knee. I thought we were gonna have 4-foot plantings like a green giant at ground level, you know, at the grade. And it would be like, well, there are 9 on the plan, so they're basically 2 feet, a little over 2 feet apart. And then that would provide privacy from the road for them when they're on their patio, and we wouldn't see entertaining going on. I think
As I said, I can get boxwood to 6 feet tall. So what I had said was we were between an actual planting species, whether it is a variety of boxwood, an arborvitae. I would not be doing green giants there because green giants would be massive as they grow in. The other thing for a green giant is you want to have them spaced about 4 feet so they don't kill each other. So that's something where that species is one that would get very large there. So I'd be looking for something that could be maintained, you know, down in that. I would have set a 4-foot range as a target, but that I can manage at 4 feet or, you know, 4 feet, 5 feet.
So you're saying, but it's definitely going to be 4 feet above the patio, not because like when you look at the elevation from the
4
side.
feet above 254.
Got it. Okay. Okay. The boxwood's nice, just saying.
Any other questions or comments from the audience? Comments from board members?
Well, I would like to just make sure that we stipulate what's going to go on there. I mean, you know, just this loosey-goosey, I'm going to pick the plant. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the right way to go. If it is boxwood, then it needs to be a 4-foot boxwood. If it's some sort of other plant, it's got to be 4 feet. When I look at the way the yard's planted now, those little, I don't know what they are, those little plants that are there now, sort of like little trees, that's not going to get the job done. So I'd like to see something tonight that says that. Otherwise, I would not be in favor of this application.
Yeah, I would commit to a 4-foot tall emerald green arborvitae, 2 feet on center.
Say that again.
A 4-foot tall, above the root ball, emerald green arborvitae, 2 feet on center.
So you're gonna wind up with more than 9 probably doing 2 feet on center.
I think they're actually shown it. I think I actually am close to 2 feet on center. I mean, I would commit to 2 feet on center, and if I need 10 or 11 to finish out that side, I would commit to that. But I think I'm 23 feet off the house, less 4 feet for the stair, plus another foot for the wall. So I'm down to 18 feet. 9 at 2 feet on center seems to get me pretty close. So.
All right.
Any other comments or questions? with that commitment made by Mr. Fiore on behalf of his client, is there a motion in this case?
Move approval with commitment of 4 feet above the root ball, 2 feet on center. Some sort of plant, like mentioned, emerald green.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Craig Plaitner,
Yes.
Jody Sharma,
Yes.
Joy Siegel,
Muted.
Sorry,
Yes.
we can't hear
Thank
you.
you.
I'm sorry.
Pete
Yes.
Toger,
Abstain.
Wolfgang Taturis,
Yes.
Jessica Glad,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg.
Yes. Congratulations on your stirring victory.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. The next
Yeah,
case
let me,
on the agenda is being carried to March 15th, as we indicated earlier. That's the Solomon case at
Yes.
401 Wyoming. So we're now down to Bing Shen, which has come before this board on a previous occasion. Correct, Eileen?
yeah, I'll explain that. So I'm bringing over Mr. Shen, Douglas Azrael, who is the architect of record, and Peter Corzin, who is the engineer of record. Hold on, I see a question from Sharon Clessy. I'm guessing it's, that matter is closed. I don't know what you want me, she has her hand raised.
That matter is closed.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so Mr. Azrael and Mr. Corzin. Yes, Joe, you're right. This application received approval, I want to say 2000, I don't even know, 2020 maybe? And there was a misunderstanding. There was a need for front yard wall height, and they indicated they had revised the plan and didn't need the front yard wall height. When the plans came in, there were also walls aligning the new driveway, which were in excess of 2 feet. And so because they had withdrawn their variance request initially, there was no approval given for the front yard wall. So they're now just here for the walls that are on the side of the driveway, which exceed 2 feet in height. So Mr. Azar, I don't know who's going to present.
Who is presenting on behalf of the applicant?
I can actually start if you'd like. I'm the engineer.
Okay.
Want to give us the benefit of your name and your expertise as an engineer?
Wait. Let's first of all swear in both Mr. Corzin and Mr. Azrael right now, so there's no confusion. Can you guys raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to be giving this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Independently, why don't you just each state your name?
Peter Corzin.
Douglas Oswald.
Thank you.
We're going to see Mr. Shen.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
Can you turn on your video, please?
Yeah. Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Shen, do you intend to give testimony this evening?
I will leave to the experts.
Okay, well,
I will leave to the experts. I don't have that much to say.
thank you.
That's a no. All right, Mr. Corzin, give us the benefit of your expertise, please.
I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor in New Jersey. and my licenses are current and active. And I have testified before this board back in June of 2019 for this application and numerous boards throughout New Jersey.
You are an engineer?
Yes, I am.
Any other questions that board members have for this witness just at the beginning of the case? Proceed, Mr. Corzine.
So I think probably the easiest thing is to bring up the lot grading plan. So I'm going to share that. And you heard Ms. Abbott describe the wall height that was inadvertently left off of the previous applications. And it actually, this is a corner lot, by the way. Lupine Avenue bends around, so it's considered a corner lot. And there's a front yard that wraps around here. You can see the line following my cursor here.
Mr. Corzine, are we looking at a plan?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me bring that up. It's in your packet. It's nothing new. It's the lot grading plan, sheet 1 of 5, last revised October 26, 2020.
Thank you.
Yeah, so going back to the plan view, we have the house that was fully described at the last hearings, the driveway which leads out to Lupine Way, and you can see these cross-hatched rectangles, and that is the subject walls that we're here tonight about. They start out towards the road at 0 feet high, 1 foot high, and then they transition up towards the house. And by the time they get to the house, they're approximately 5 feet high. But really, as far as the variance goes, it's the front yard setback that we're concerned about. And you can see this curved line right here. And we have spot elevations on each side, on the south side and on the north side. So on the south side, the variance is for a 3.8 foot high wall, and that exceeds the 2 foot that's allowed. And on the north side, it is 4.2 feet high. And again, that exceeds the 2 foot allowance. Nothing else has changed, so that really concludes my presentation. I'm open for questions.
I have a question to start off with. Why wasn't this matter brought up at the last hearing?
I mean, you could blame it on me. I was at the first hearing. I think there were 3 hearings, and it kind of got lost in the shuffle. And there were some modifications, multiple modifications made to the plan. There was a large patio in the front at one time that was eliminated. The house design was changed, and you could blame it on me. It's just my fault. It was something that I just left off of my plan in the zoning data table on the upper right.
Any other questions?
For the record, could you just state why you have to exceed stated limit, please?
Sure. Well, it's a corner lot. It's a little tough with the orientation of the lot and the topography. And if I could bring up that plan again, let me just do that. Relatively small lot, and to fit a house that works with the neighborhood and still provide a driveway and a garage, it ends up being a garage under. So we have not a steep driveway, but a driveway that's usable that leads up to that garage. And because the grades are higher, they all slope down from the southeast corner of the property towards Lupine Way. By the time you get up towards the house and towards that front setback line, it ends up being greater than 2 feet high. So I mean, if you were going to, I'm not testifying as a planner, but I believe that the last time this was approved, there were some C1 arguments that were presented or accepted as far as the lot configuration and the topography that we're dealing with.
So in other words, you could not create that driveway if you stay within the variance.
I'm sorry, what was that?
you would not be able to create the driveway without the variance.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
I'm sorry, I can't tell who that
I
is.
have,
Oh, Joy, yes.
there's also well, I have two questions. There's also walls that are shown in the front of the house along the walk. How high are those walls?
Those are less than 2 feet high.
That's where the confusion came in, because initially I think they were higher than 2 feet. They were reduced to 2 feet. And so there was confusion when we asked, so you don't need wall height variance, they said, yes. I was under the assumption that they had also revised the driveway walls. So it was miscommunications, I guess, all the way around.
Okay, so those are 2 feet, so there's a rail that goes on top of that, but so they're not walls all the way up, because you have to have a handrail, right?
I believe the height is 4 feet. I have to, I don't know the code section for that, but there's a railing alongside the driveway, but there's no railing for the wall, which is only a landscape high wall. It's only a 2 foot high wall at the front walk that leads to the front entrance of the building. There's no railing there. It's only along the driveway where we have a 3 to 4, 5 foot high wall there.
What it says on the plans that the wall is made of modular block. Is that concrete block? What would be the finish?
Whatever the homeowner selects, it could be Allen block or Keystone, many manufacturers.
And will there be like a top on the wall, or you don't know that?
There's a capstone. There's always a capstone on top of the wall.
Do you know what that will be? What material?
It's made of the same material.
Same meaning the same material as the wall?
Same material as the wall, correct? Yes.
Any other questions for this witness?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Mr. Corzine, I'm looking at on sheet 1 of 5 in your zoning table. There's identification for maximum impervious surface in front yard, and you note that a variance is required. Can you just elaborate on why you're not asking for that right now? And I'm referring specifically, it says permitted 30%, existing 37.80% west, and proposed 40.19% west.
Yes, I believe that was granted already. I'm looking at the variance right now. I can share it on the screen if you'd like, but maybe Ms. Dabbitt can corroborate that.
I think all that zoning data, that table is probably from the original submission, which noted all the original variances that were being sought.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So they were all granted with the first resolution.
So Eileen, did that include, because I saw that there was a I guess a front yard setback that was granted, right? That was a variance.
For the house, for the construction of the house, front yard setback, coverage, front yard coverage.
Okay, I didn't see, and maybe I just missed it, this 40.19% in the first resolution. And I just want to be clear that that was granted, because otherwise we certainly don't want this applicant to come back for a third time. Mr. Corzine, it's your burden, so.
I think there were some, if I do recall, I think you initially, his calculations were over what he initially needed. And, but I'm confident that the approval that he needed at the time he received and for the construction of the house was strictly the front yard walls, which were the oversight.
Yeah, I'm reading through the resolution on page 1, and
I think after I did it, I realized that I think you were calculating it slightly different, and I don't even believe you needed the coverage after we redid it.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's covered, that's all. Thank you.
I have another question.
Yes, sure.
How does the garage work now on the property? I've gone to the site twice, but I don't even remember for some reason. Can you explain how it works now? Because there is a garage, right?
Yeah, it's the same situation right now. I mean, the architect can describe it in more detail with the existing house, but
Is it a below grade? It's a below grade garage now?
it's at grade with the garage, and I believe the main part of the house is above that.
So the floor of the garage now in relationship to the grade of the street, is it as low as it is now as you're proposing, or is it higher?
Yeah, no, it's roughly the same. It's just that because we're shifting the house back slightly away from Lupine Way, and the grades actually get a little bit higher there, and we're doing a little bit of modification in the front with the walkway, that we end up with higher grades than the existing wall currently.
So if you're standing in front of the garage door, the walls on either side of you will be how tall? 5 feet? How many inches?
Well, at the front yard setback, we're on the left, it would be, which is the north side, that's 4.2 feet high.
Mhm.
And on the right side at the front yard setback, it's 3.8 feet high.
But if I'm facing the garage door and standing right in front of the garage door, the walls are on either side of the driveway, how tall are those?
Right at the garage door on the left side, it is, let's see, 4.2 feet, I believe.
4.2 and 4.1.
Yes.
So where's the worst case scenario? You said it was something was
Right there, right where you were just concerned about, right at the house itself, right at the garage. That's the worst case.
So to get a garage and not to need this variance, that the garage would have to be on the ground level, not below grade, right? That's the only way.
I mean, you would have, first of all, you couldn't make it because you'd have either a super small house or you'd have a very high house and it would exceed the maximum height. And you'd also end up with a very steep driveway. So it just wouldn't work with this lot.
Any other questions of the witness? Is there anyone in the audience on this case?
There's no one in the audience.
Board members who care to discuss this matter?
Is there any other testimony going to be provided by Mr. Azrael or otherwise?
If you have questions, I can direct your attention to the elevations and get some sense of the appearance of the wall. So I'll just proceed to the sharing the screen here with you. Let's see.
Mr. Azrael is going to provide testimony. He needs to be qualified.
Oh, yes.
For witness in the field of
Has he been sworn?
He has been sworn. You swore him in at the beginning.
Okay.
Oh.
Give us the benefit of your expertise and experience.
Okay, I've been licensed 20 years as an architect in the state of New Jersey. I've appeared before this board and other boards and in the area, most recently Madison and Hanover Township.
You're licensed in good standing. As an
Yes, it
architect.
is. Yeah, it's in. I'm current and also a member of the AIA and application pending with the NCARB, the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards.
Proceed.
Okay, I'll share the screen with you. All right, bring it to the. Let's see here. Go to my plan, my elevations. All right. All right, I hope you're all seeing sheet Z2, the elevations. Is everybody seeing the screen? Seeing the elevations on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So here is a kind of a frontal view of the garage doors from Lupine Way, showing the steps on the left side, and where it says retaining wall, that is the worst case scenario up against the house at 5.2 feet. Then it drops as you approach the street, and right at the steps is where it is at 4.2 feet, within the setback. Just before the steps, that's where it drops to less than 2 feet. I'll show that in this elevation. So this would be the condition. So just at the steps, it's about 2.5 feet above grade there. So it's in excess and it's in the setback. At its worst, again, it's at 5.2 nearest the house. But just before you get to these first little steps here, these 3 steps, it's under 2 feet in the setback. So, and that would be confirmed with Mr. Corzin's site plan showing the spot elevations where indicating the height of the wall above the driveway. From the front elevation at the front of the house, the walls will stay less than 2 feet above the grade there, but they're more than 2 feet, of course, from the above the surface of the driveway. There's a guardrail as required by code for any difference of height 30 inches or more. Where the difference of height is less than 30 inches, the guardrail is no longer required. And so that occurs for about 12 feet in front of the house toward Lupine. And so that's the extent of my presentation with regard to the retaining walls and its coordination with the house.
Just so I understand, your worst case scenario is that you need 5.2 feet, is that correct?
Right, and that's right against the house. And it took, as you see here on drawing number 2, rear elevation, you see how it declines from that point onward. And within 7, the house is 40 feet back, but it's the first 17, it's the 17 feet from the house, so 23 feet to the property line. It's less than up to 23 feet away from the property line. It's less than 2 feet.
Any other questions of this witness? Anyone in the audience have any questions of this witness? Is there anyone in the audience at all, Eileen, with respect to this case?
I need Mr. Azal to unshare his screen.
I'm sorry, say again.
I need Mr. Azal to unshare the screen. I can't see.
Oh, unshare the screen. Sorry. Okay.
Can't see anybody. There are no attendees.
Stop share.
Oh, there is no one there?
No, there's no one.
Board members, what are your thoughts about granting this variance? I guess I would put it another way. Is there a motion in this case?
Approval?
Steve, say again.
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Wolfgang seconds.
Craig Plattner,
Yes.
Jyoti Sharma,
You're muted.
Yes.
thank you. Joy Siegel,
No.
Steve Koger,
Yes.
Wolfgang Tutoris,
Yes.
Jessica Blatt,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg.
Yes. I think that
Approval.
finishes the agenda for the evening. Are there any other matters to be brought before the board that are not on the agenda? I hear none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. See you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Night all.
Thank you all.
Good night.